For several hours after committing the biggest mass murders in Grand Rapids history, Rodrick Dantzler rode around town with a longtime friend, drinking and talking about why. That friend sat down with Target 8's Ken Kolker, who has been trying to piece together the events of that deadly day.
His name is Willie Cunningham, and he fills in what happened during the 4 hours between the discoveries of the 7 bodies and the chase through Grand Rapids. Cunningham is the owner of the white SUV that Dantzler drove and eventually crashed before taking hostages and later his own life. He refused to go on camera, but he told Target 8 how he came to spend that afternoon with Dantzler. Police tell us they believe Cunningham spent about 3 hours with Dantzler, and they don't suspect Cunningham of any wrongdoing.
He's not a suspect. He basically picks, the suspect up and rides around for a while.
Cunningham says it was closer to 4 hours. He says Dantzler, a friend since they were 8 years old, called him about 3 in the afternoon that day, told him he'd been in a fight and needed a ride. What he didn't know, he tells us, was that Dantzler had shot 4 members of the Heron family, including his estranged wife and daughter, and 3 members of the Emkins family, including his ex-girlfriend. Those bodies were discovered shortly after 3. What he also didn't know was that Dantzler, while driving a Lincoln Town car, had just shot a man in the nose during a road rage incident on the southwest side. Cunningham tells us he picked up Dantzler not far from that road rage scene on Godfrey Avenue. He says Dantzler seemed calm as they drove around the city, stopping at Dantzler's request to buy alcohol. While Cunningham drove that white SUV, Dantzler drank, all while police were still looking for the town car. Then, about an hour and a half into that ride, somebody called Cunningham with the news that Dantzler, the man sitting next to him, had shot 7 people. Cunningham told Target 8 he didn't believe it until Dantzler admitted it to him. He says they drove around the city for another 2.5 hours, talking about the shootings. Dantzler, he says, told him what set him off, that Jennifer Heron, his wife of 10 years, was leaving him. Even though he knew about Dantzler's history of violence, Cunningham still believes his friend snapped. Then it was about 7, now 4 hours after the bodies were discovered, that Dantzler and Cunningham were headed south on Plainfield, about where it turns to North Division. That, Cunningham says, is when he saw police behind him starting to give chase. Cunningham, fearing he'd get caught in a shootout, tells us he opened the door and jumped from that moving SUV. Police say they saw him jump.
He comes down here, gives us a full statement on, what occurred before. The police saw him, what the suspect said to him, Dantzler said to him, and he's been very cooperative. I think he just was another person that got into the mix.
Cunningham says his biggest question still is this: why Dantzler shot 2 young children, including his own daughter. I'm Target 8 investigator Ken Kolker.
Today we also got our hands on the minutes from Dantzler's parole hearing in 2003 when he was released from prison. In the report, it states that Dantzler shows a reckless disregard for life, showed intent to permanently injure, and has become progressively more dangerous. He was in prison at the time for shooting at another driver while in traffic, but the report also says Dantzler was making improvements. It says he has accepted responsibility, has developed insight into his behavior, and expresses remorse. Dantzler was granted parole during that hearing.